Speaker. I rise to speak on the Child Protection Working with Children and Other Child Protection Legislation Amendment Bill of 2016. And I'd like to thank the Shadow Minister for her contribution on this particular debate. The bill contains a package of amendments to legislation relating to child protection, employment and education, and was proposed by the Office of the Children's Guardian, which was established by the Carr Government in 1998 with the passage of the Children and Young Persons Care and Protection Act. Now, the most recent changes to child protection legislation were made in June of last year after a concerted campaign by the New South Wales opposition to highlight examples of clearances which had been granted to appeal to individuals who'd committed serious crimes against children. And those changes ensured that people convicted in prison of murder, indecent or sexual assault of a child pornography or incest with a child victim will never be able to appeal the NCAT to the NCAT to overturn the ban of them working with children. Now, other changes included the introduction of a reasonable person test to be applied by the Children's Guardian, New South Wales Civil and Appeals Tribunal, and the establishment of an expert advisory panel to provide general advice to the Children's Guardian in relation to risk assessments. Now, as yet, the Children's Guardian expert panel is not functioning, with 10 applications received and only 3 approved. And it's appalling that the Children's Guardian expert advisory panel has not been established to date. Now, I want to take a moment just to reflect on what the actual intent of this bill is. And it is really to stop children in institutional settings being subjected to abuse by people who are employed for their care and protection. And this is an area where over time we have seen successive governments fail to be able to adequately protect children from all of the threats that may be made against them by those in institutional settings. There's a general siloing of child protection, which I've noticed in my role as Shadow Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, where it appears that sexual assault that happens at a school is different to that which happens to children in a church setting, to young people at university, to those who attend youth camps. And we have the Royal Commission doing a major investigation into the appalling cases of abuse that have happened in many, many years in churches and other institutions in our community. But these are at the heart all the same issue. They are the non-consensual, which cannot be consensual if it's happening with a child, attempt to sexually assault or indecently assault these children. And we need to go further, I think, than this bill in our approach. We need to look at a system where we actually can provide a whole of government response to sexual assault. And that's why it's of concern to me that we don't have a sexual assault strategy, which was promised by the Minister for Prevention of Sexual Assault last year. I also think we need to address building resilience in children and making them aware of the threats that are out there. I remember as a child being taught about stranger danger, and I know that those messages are put out there all the time to children, to not go into places where they may be at risk, to not accept lifts from strangers, to not accept any situation which may place them at risk. And I note the contributions of the member for Riverstone regarding the very real and present risk that children face in their homes from domestic abuse and sexual assault in the home. But I must take issue, this bill itself has not taken all the steps that are required to protect children in education or institutions and other workplaces. The amendment proposed by the Shadow Minister is very important, and that to ensure that a charged person who's placed on alternative non-child related work cannot be on the school site itself, because it makes a mockery of the whole process of a working with children check, which is at its heart to protect children from people who they may actually know. They may have met these people because they are in employed positions within institutions with which children are interacting, and it actually puts them in a place of danger. So where that person may not necessarily be directly employed to look after that child or to interact with them, if they're on the same site, there is definitely a risk to them. I really just wanted to make that point, particularly though, about the siloing of the way that we deal with sexual assault. Sexual assault is a heinous crime. It goes to the very heart of an individual's self-esteem, to the development of themselves as a person as they get older, and it has such terrible consequences for children. And we need to ensure that our response is not a bitsy response, that when we put forward legislation like this, we think of all the implications, not just around protecting the children by discussing the issues for the perpetrators, but most importantly by helping to build resilience and understanding for those children. And that's why programs such as Respectful Relationships, which have been rolled out at an early age through an evidence-based program in Victoria, are such an important tool for us, because we cannot, as parents, we cannot as citizens ensure that our children are safe in every place that they are. So we need to ensure that they have the skills to recognise grooming behaviour, whether it comes from a stranger that pulls up beside them on a highway, or whether it's someone who's working at an institution where they are who happens to bump into them. Part of this is, of course, looking at restricting the access that convicted persons have to children, but the other part, most importantly, has to be around protecting the children by giving them the empowerment to understand those behaviours and to reject them and to be able to help themselves in that situation. And then, of course, the next stage, that if those kind of behaviours are perpetrated against them, that they have the appropriate mechanisms by which to make complaints to them. Thank you, and I commend the bill to the House with the amendment. Thank you.